Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Okay, let's just dive right into it. We're going to dig deep into the data today to uncover the current economic reality facing American households in 2026. Because look, if you've been feeling a bit of a pinch in your wallet lately, or maybe wondering why it seems so much harder to put cash away at the end of the month, you are definitely not alone. Today, we're cutting through all the noise and looking straight at the numbers to see exactly what's going on with American savings, debt, and the rising cost of living.
To ease any financial anxiety right out of the gate, here is our roadmap for this explainer. 1. The national savings slump. 2. Debt versus emergency savings. 3. The reality of emergency funds. 4. Inflation and the cost squeeze. 5. Tapping into the reserves. And 6. How to build a buffer. Let's get started.
Section 1. The national savings slump. The macro picture.
All right, take a look at this single, honestly shocking statistic, 2.6%. According to the Bureau of Economic Analysis, this was the U.S. personal savings rate as of April 2026. I mean, to put that into perspective, just a year prior, this exact same rate sat at 5.8%. Outside of a brief little period in 2022, the national savings rate has almost never been this low in the past 65 years.
And hey, if that number surprises you, you're definitely in good company. Heather Long, the chief economist at Navy Federal Credit Union, actually noted, "I thought 2.6% for April was a typo at first. It is so low." This current economic reality isn't just tough on the average consumer, it's genuinely surprising the top economic professionals who watch this data for a living. So the crucial point here is making sure we all know what that 2.6% actually means. The personal savings rate is literally just the share of income Americans have left over after paying their taxes and covering their living expenses. It's the buffer, it's the safety net, and right now, on a national level, that safety net is shrinking incredibly fast.
Section 2. Debt versus emergency savings. The household reality.
Recent bank rate survey data is, well, pretty revealing. While 44% of Americans do have more in emergency savings than they have in credit card debt, a wild 29%, that's nearly 3 in 10 Americans, are currently holding more credit card debt than they have in emergency savings. And another 19% have neither savings nor credit card debt. That means a massive portion of the country is walking a really precarious financial tightrope right now. When we break down exactly who's feeling that burden the most, millennials take the top spot at 35%. Closely followed by Gen Xers at 33%. Baby boomers are slightly lower at 29%. So the prime working age generations are absolutely the ones currently feeling the heaviest squeeze between their debt obligations and their ability to save. Moving on to Section 3, the reality of emergency funds, expectation versus reality. Now, before we look at the national data here, I really want you to ask yourself this question. How would you pay for a $1,000 emergency today? Like if you had a sudden ER visit or your car broke down on the way to work, how would you cover it? Keep your own answer in mind as we look at how the rest of the country responded. Well, here's the reality for the rest of the country. Only 30% of people surveyed could comfortably just use their savings to cover that $1,000 expense. That is less than a third of the country. Meanwhile, 17% would be forced to finance it with a credit card, taking on more debt, and another 17% would have to figure out how to pay it out of their regular cash flow, essentially squeezing an already tight paycheck even further. You can see there's a massive disconnect between expectation and reality here. Experts are always telling us to save 3 to 6 months of living expenses, right? But the cold, hard economic reality is that 24% of Americans have absolutely $0 saved for emergencies. None. If you're struggling to build an emergency fund, this should completely neutralize any personal shame you might be feeling. A quarter of the country is operating completely without a financial safety net right now. Section 4. Inflation and the cost squeeze. What's draining savings?
So, what's causing all of this? The data points to a pretty clear culprit. Since December 2019, consumer prices are up 26%. When asked what factors are causing them to save less, 54% of Americans point directly to inflation and rising prices. Paychecks simply aren't keeping up with the rising cost of absolute basics like electricity, healthcare, and food at the grocery store. Another 26% cite a change in their income or unemployment, and 17% point to recent interest rate cuts affecting the growth of the money they do have saved. And when we look at who actually managed to increase their savings recently, the systemic nature of this whole thing really becomes clear. 30% of those making over $80,000 grew their savings, compared to just 12% of those making under $40,000. We see a really similar gap with education too.
29% of those with postgraduate education increased their savings versus 15% for those with no college. So the big takeaway here is this. Growing emergency savings right now is heavily tied to having a higher income and education level, rather than just simply having better spending habits or clipping coupons.
Section 5. Tapping into the reserves. Where the money goes.
Get this. More than a third of U.S. adults had to use their emergency savings in the past year. But we need to look at why. They overwhelmingly tapped their savings to cover absolute essentials. 51% used it for unplanned emergencies like medical bills or car repairs. 38% used it just to cover monthly bills like rent and utilities. And 32% used it for day-to-day expenses like food. They are absolutely not withdrawing this money for vacations or luxury shopping. They're literally using it just to survive the month.
And when the regular savings run out, desperation kind of sets in. According to CNBC data, 19.2% of workers actually have an outstanding loan against their own 401k retirement savings right now. That is nearly a fifth of the workforce borrowing against their own future retirement just to stay afloat today. It's a really stark indicator of the current economic reality.
All right, Section 6, How to Build a Buffer. Actionable Solutions. Bankrate actually outlines 3 really clear steps to get started, even when it feels totally impossible. Step 1. Figure out how much you need. Yes, experts say 3 to 6 months, but please don't let that overwhelm you. Aim for a micro target of just $500 to start. Honestly, just getting to $500 is a massive psychological win. Step 2, open a dedicated savings account. Keep this money totally separate from your checking so you aren't tempted to spend it. Ideally, find a high-yield account. Step 3, make a budget around your savings. Automate your deposits, even if it's literally just $10 or $20 a paycheck. Consistency is absolutely key here. Certified financial planner Stephen Cates offers a really crucial piece of advice here. He says households will be more likely to succeed by finding ways to increase their income rather than searching for more expenses to cut. In a high-inflation economy where basic necessities cost so much more, there's a hard limit to how much you can actually cut back. Taking on a side hustle, negotiating a raise, or finding creative ways to boost your incoming cash flow might be the most realistic path to actually growing your savings right now.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final question. What is your primary financial goal for 2026? The economic reality out there is undeniably challenging, but taking control always starts with focus. Do you need to focus exclusively on paying down that credit card debt, or do you need to prioritize hitting that $500 emergency fund micro target? Pick just one priority, put all your energy there, and take that first step today. Thanks so much for joining me to unpack the data, and I'll see you in the next explainer.